that we have learned from doing this, and that was actually communicated by many of you last year that were a part of this, was that one of the values or things that you valued most was the opportunity to learn from one another. Learn from one another. So not always just, one of us directors that's teaching, but learning from one another. So up here, I have 4 individuals that represent some different ministry sites and perspectives. But the goal of this is this. So purpose beyond programming. All right. So we talked about, if you were downstairs, we talked about the ministry of presence and showing up. We talked about relational ministry actions. How many of you have in your hand right now? You have the schedule. You have the schedule with you. If you flip that schedule over to the back, what you're going to see is on the back are actually, when we talk about relational ministry actions or RMAs, we have listed there on that what some of those RMAs are that we talk about. Ones that come outside of regular club or program are things like appointments, building times, contacting, small groups. Those are things that kind of happen and form outside of just that regular meeting, club, program that maybe you do. And these individuals are up here because we as leaders have just watched them begin to practice and bring to life some of these relational ministry actions. So what I'd love to do is this. First of all, I would love just to kind of pass the microphone down, introduce yourself, who you are, where you do ministry at, and maybe how long that you've been involved. Okay?
Hi, my name is Addison. I'm with Lawrence Campus Life. We're at Lawrence North, and I've been plugged in for about 6 years now. And I was a senior in high school the first year Chris came to Indianapolis, and then when I got out of college, came back. So, full circle.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I volunteer with Mount Vernon Campus Life when I'm home from school, and then when I'm at school at IWO, I do the Red Barn, which is at Big Jaws, so it's technically not Central Indiana.
I'm Mike St. Andre. I work with City Life Wheels, and I've been doing it for about 5-6 years. Love it.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Kathy Blamo, and I wrote this list out of what I did and where I come from. I have 1 daughter, a son-in-law, 2 grandchildren, ages 6 and 15 years of age. I retired from AT&T after 30 years. I have a love for Jesus and a heart for young people. I love to travel. I've been an usher for 20 years at my church. I'm a past member of the evangelism team and present member of our Light of the World Christian Church Women's Outreach Ministry, where we serve organizations such as Wheeler's Mission for Families, Dayspring for Families, and the Coburn Place for Women. I was introduced to the Youth for Christ Parent Life through my minister, the Reverend Lisa Holland, and one of the other volunteers, Rhonda Williams, who introduced me to this program, and this has been my going on 2nd year, enjoyable year, working with this wonderful organization, staff, and volunteers.
Awesome. And you guys could just keep that microphone up there. So we'll let you guys hold it. And you can, it doesn't have to be in a direct line to answer. If there's somebody that kind of has an answer that wants to pop up, you pass the microphone down. We want to try to hear from as many as you as possible. Not everybody might answer the same question, so that's how we're going to run this session. So we'll ask some questions here, but then we're going to give you a little bit of a chance too. So we talk about relational ministry actions, doing, meeting kids outside of just the program setting. Yeah, you can. Thank you, Nate. Give it up for our chivalrous Nate Hershey. Thank you. So first question is this: what are some of the ways that you have been able to engage in relational ministry outside of the club or program setting? So what are some of those ways?
I'll start off because I'm holding the mic. I guess I would say that my answer to that is a little on the shallow end. The opportunities I take outside of the club are picking up the guys. We don't have too many girls. Every now and again we have girls at Wheels, but usually it's guys. And so I'll offer my services. I drive, most of them don't. So I can do that. But I guess beyond that, it's just trying to connect. Texting the kids, calling them up, ask them how life is, and yeah, just trying to engage.
I hear, so I've talked with Nate a little bit and seen you in action, that you are the master question asker. That's just an avenue that you're able to use to begin to dive into the life of a kid. So how have you found that opportunity to do that?
Yeah, okay, well, I don't know about master, but I never feel like I can get enough information. And so I am always asking questions. I don't know if they're good questions, but they're questions. I heard one time that if you want somebody to talk, you just ask them about themselves, because they've got endless information to give. They might be reticent to share it, but if you create the avenue to ask a question, and then there's always follow-up questions too, it kind of puts the ball in their court. And I'm more than happy to hear whatever is said. I feel like everybody has lots of information to share, and I want to know it.
Awesome, good. Who else? Other relational ministry actions that you've been able to be a part of?
So I was just a student 2 years ago, so I'm kind of taking a lot of what I learned when I was a student and trying to apply it now. So I had appointments with my campus life director, Carrie, weekly, where I just kind of talked about life. It was senior year. It was really crazy for me, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, what college I wanted to go to, and just everything. And that's when I started. We went through the book of John, which was really impactful for me. At that point, I didn't really know where to start even reading my Bible. And then my other leaders, we did group activities, so we'd go to Tuttle's Orchard or have Christmas parties, and they were just really intentional with hanging out with us. So now I just started mentoring a 7th grade girl. We're going through the book of James, and it's been really good, just spending one-on-one time with her, getting to know her and talking and asking questions, and just connecting with her.
Awesome. So Taylor offers an amazing perspective here, if you caught that she was just a student involved in campus life 2 years ago that had leaders that invested in her, and now you are turning around with a 7th grade middle school student and doing some of the same things that were valuable in terms of a relationship building thing that you had. So super cool. Awesome.
Some of the ways that I was able to engage with this relational ministry part was that attending some of the parties and the fellowships that we had outside of the establishment on Washington Street, some of the graduation programs that we attended, and the senior mom that had left us, and then our new mom that graduated from school to high school. And then some of the things we did was we went to a neighborhood that I recall, that we went to a neighborhood center where they were given resources and information for them and their children. And then there were some of the financial things that was given to them while we were there. They toured the building that enabled them and empowered them to do more, and if they needed help in any resourceful way. And then another thing that I felt very important was the leadership conferences that I learned to have that relationship with them on a basis when I met with them on Mondays.
Excellent. Yeah, Addison, how about you? Ways that you've connected?
Yeah, so I think sounds like we've had some really good one-on-one appointments, building time, and I think the most challenging thing, at least I've found, is kind of those contacting events where you have to meet students where they're at. Because club is really easy because they come to you. Oh, this thing's going off the back. So this could be an interesting panel. And so I think it's a little intimidating. One of the things that I found to be really helpful is the great thing about schools is their transparency in their events. So Lawrence Township puts out a newsletter where they'll put the football games, they'll put the basketball games, they'll put the plays. And so when we talk about being present, what I found is just going to these events. And sometimes when you go to a soccer game to support a kid, you might talk to them for 5 seconds afterwards, but it means a lot that you were there. And I find it even more effective when I go with another ministry leader. So just because it's not only a great way to have a buddy, because there's just a lot of downtime at a lot of contacting events, and you can just kind of feel awkward, and there's only so many people on your phone you can text. And so having somebody and allowing them, and sometimes they're waiting for you to hey, I would love to do this, but I was waiting for somebody, and allow them to connect with students. And it just allows for just doing ministry together, just building relationships with your team. So I found that to be really helpful, even when it's going, like we went to the show Cats, they did a musical Cats, and it was not fun. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is a show about cats. There's just like, here's a cat, here's a cat. It was awful, but it was awesome. We were there and it was great. And it meant, like, I remember, like, you remember this class. I mean, they were more excited to see us than they were their parents at the end. And yes, we talked to them for 4.5 seconds, but to be present was the most important part.
Yeah, very good, very good. So, you know, one of the things I remember when I started out of ministry was the value of this is sometimes we think, I want to do this. Like, it's a desire. I want to be able to connect with kids, but I don't know how. Like, what's the first step? So, panel, I would love to ask you, so in doing a contacting event and getting together with kids to ask questions, what were the steps that you had to take or that someone helped you take in order to make this happen? Go.
Yeah, I guess I'll go since I still have the mic. I think a lot of it is just putting yourself out there. And so like you'll meet a kid, I mean, club is one of those great jumping off points, at least in campus life, where you can meet a kid and you'd be like, hey, you said that in small group, I'd love to, or like in our group discussion, love to unpack you with that a little bit more. And I think the hardest part is like asking the kid, because I think it's like weird that we care about what high schoolers and middle schoolers think about us, but like we're like really honest with ourselves. I think a lot of us do, and even if it's not that we're cool, that we feel like they care about us, that we're a good father figure for them, or more that modeling Christ well. So it's a lot of it stepping out and just being consistent. I've been stood up for coffees and Arby's and McDonald's on so many occasions where I've ended up eating alone. But it's my little tip, I think you should bring a book, because then you can just read a book and then you can genuinely say you had a good time. But continuing to pursue them through that, and sometimes it's the fourth time's the charm they come to small group. We're doing a small group right now post camp, and we had a kid show up to I think the third week that hadn't come before, and so I kept making that ask, and yes, he said no a bunch, but just that persistency of praying for that connection and just being faithful about getting out there and trying to connect with the student.
I guess how I kind of started getting connected was as a student, I got pushed out of my comfort zone a lot. I went to school for one class and then I worked, but I had a break where my campus life director would like go into lunches and she'd be like, you're a student, come with me. Or like, I'm going to a game tonight, like you should come with me. And I just started realizing like people like enjoy when you come, like they enjoy, like even though like it was very uncomfortable for me and I was like, I don't want to do that, I did it anyways, and just stepping out, and then they begin to like trust you because you're coming to see them, like they know you can do a bunch of other things, but like you chose intentionally to come watch them, and it helps them want to get to know you as well.
Anybody else?
I think being consistent, it has enabled me to just connect with the kids. Just knowing that, you know, for me, it's Tuesday nights. That's my thing. My family knows that. My kids, unfortunately, know that they won't see me that night, but they know as well what I'm up to. And so just, I think being consistent is a real big thing.
A couple things is just being a great encourager and always being dependable and always encouraging them to be on the positive side and come with a smile.
Good. Okay, so you've shared, Addison, you were sharing a little bit about just some of the disappointment sometimes in the midst of it, or some of the real emotion that you can feel in the midst of stepping out of your comfort zone in this kind of a way. So in what ways have you felt real nervousness, or have you felt scared about taking this kind of step? So have you ever felt those kind of emotions in stepping out and doing relational ministry actions this way? Go with that.
Oh, always, yeah, always.
Always, okay.
So we had a small group on Wednesday, and here's how usually this goes. One kid will say they're not coming, and then you get the next, then you get the next, then you get the next. And so it becomes a threshold where it's like, nobody's coming, but I'm game if we have one student there. That's my view. But like, I was nervous, like who's gonna show up this week? Because one kid canceled, and then he's just wondering, but like, I think when I was unpacking it, I think part of it is when I was in my quiet time, I was thinking, I want to have this small group so that they can learn about Jesus, but I also think I want to have this small group because I have a set plan for how their spiritual life should go. That it needs to be, go to small group, say yes to Jesus, this is how it goes, instead of, and like that's not necessarily a bad thing that I want these kids to know Jesus, but it's God's work in their life. It's not my subjective view of how their life should go. And so I think that's where a lot of the nervousness comes from, is we feel like we have this huge responsibility for their spiritual lives, when it's really, God just calls us to faithfulness and obedience in each one of these student lives. And if that kid doesn't come to small group, which a couple of them didn't, we had a great small group, by the way. Not only because one of the kids shared a rap video he made when he was in 7th grade. He's now a senior. It was incredible. Incredible in a bad way, of course. But I think just like we're getting at what's at that nervousness. And I think for me, a lot of that nervousness is feeling like their spiritual life is in my hands. And I had a really hard time at camp this year. I went to camp with our high schoolers. And there's just a lot of stuff that they shared. And a lot of them just going back into really hard situations. And it just broke my heart thinking, I love these guys and I want to protect them as they go back in and I want to be there for them. And what God just showed me, God isn't very charismatic, but what he was telling me through his word was that, yeah, it's still going. Oh, it's fine. Be a good way to go. What God was telling me is how much you love them, how much more do I love them? And if you are going to do this, how much more am I going to take care of them? And just that freedom that comes with that. So I think just getting down, this is a long-winded answer, but just getting down to why am I nervous? Why am I scared? It can be really fruitful not only in ministry, but just also in your own walk with the Lord.
Yeah. Anybody else experienced any kind of emotions like that? Fear, nervousness? Yeah, let's just hear a couple others. And
so maybe just experience or unexperience. So I remember asking one of my kids for his number so I could text him and just keep in contact. He straight up said, no, I'm not doing that. But this same kid, so I still don't have, actually now I have his number. I was persistent with that, but it took a while. But the same kid, once I missed him on a hello. I tried to make a point to say hey to everybody. And I just missed him and say hey to them by name. And he called me out on it. And so, I think that to me it demonstrated that they want to be known. And it's a struggle to get to know some of the kids sometimes, but it is more than worth it to them, which is one of the reasons why we're doing this.
I don't scare too often or get too nervous, but there was one occasion where me and my director went to one of our new moms' home, and a fear came over for me because old school, and I don't do well on getting out of my box and visiting different homes and what I might, encounter. But that was the first time I really was fearful and nervous, because when I drove up, my director wasn't there yet, and I'm scoping out the area, and I'm not familiar with this side of town. But the Lord just brought all this presence and reminded me of Psalms 121, that he would not leave me, he's always there. But then it got better. Then the fear started subsiding. Then my director pulled up, and we went in and enjoyed meeting the family, and great meeting the new mom and the new youngster that that's coming to our group. So it's all been good.
wonderful, and been able to connect not only just with the student, but it sounds like right there the family as well. Being able to, and ministry will take you beyond just the student oftentimes as well. It will take you into their lives, into their peer groups, into their families as well. Let me ask another question here. So you shared a little bit about your fears and stuff, and part of that is we want you to know that you will experience those nerves, that fear, but God is faithful in the midst of it. So where have you seen God at work through your meeting with students in this kind of way? How have you seen God work through just your simple obedience of, even when scared, even when nervous, even though you face discouragement, that you are consistent and continue to try? Where have you seen God at work?
So with the girl I'm like mentoring now and going through the book of James, she went to camp, and that's kind of when she decided like she was open to the idea but wasn't ready to commit. And I've just been walking through with her the past couple of weeks and just studying the Bible and just getting to know her. And her mom had actually texted Carrie saying like they were working on homework and it was really frustrating and it had been hours and hours and just trying to get it done. And the girl had looked up to her mom and said, "Mama, we just need to stop and pray. Like everything's gonna be okay." And I just think that's so cool in the transition of like how she was just like, "No, like I don't even want to go to camp. Like I don't want anything to do with that." To now like being that light even to her family and just being like, "This is what we need to do. Like it's gonna be okay." So for me, that's just been really cool in the past couple of weeks just to see that.
Yeah, I think just the faithfulness and obedience, and sometimes it's hard when it takes like years. So there was a kid I was doing a small group with at Arby's, great place, and we just kind of got into it at a small group, and I was not, I did not handle it correctly because I would like subjectively view like I'm a lawyer, I can get them to like. I can logically get them to see that the Bible is completely sound, and then they'll believe in Jesus. So it's on me. And like, of course, that didn't work. And I just like I would like asking him questions like about kind of moral relativism, or like, is it wrong? If what's right for me, if something's right for you, is it right for everybody, or can it be wrong for me and right for you? And it just got really frustrating. And I actually called Chris afterwards. It's like, man, this was just like this did not go well. And I later sent him a text the next day, which should have called him now that I think about it, but millennial, and said like, I'm sorry, I just want you to know Jesus and what the transforming impact he's had on my life. And it was a lot of walking with him afterwards and just having kind of tough small group, but then he went to camp and the Lord just wrecked his life and he said yes to Jesus. And it was really hard to like, not only like walk with a student, but like go through conflict with a student and also humble yourself in front of them and say like, hey, I was very prideful in this conversation, but like I'm made whole through Jesus, and I'm a sinful person who's saved only by the atoning sacrifice of Jesus Christ. So I think it's just hard to walk with students for a longer season, but it's just God's plan in their life. And it was really cool to see him tangibly do that. Just one quick story about him. He's super competitive. Like every sport, he cheats in all of our campus life games. Just all of them. And after he said yes to Jesus, they were playing in the Frisbee tournament, and they got just wiped. They got smoked. And I like talked to him afterwards because we were having a one-on-one. I was kind of like, how's this gonna go? He's like, it didn't matter. All I wanted to do was just have fun with the guys in our cabin. And I was like, man, heart change. And it's just so cool when you see the Lord working through him. Even at small group this week, he's like, is it wrong that I want to tell people about Jesus? Like, is that like selfish? I'm like, no. Go for it.
Anybody else? Ways you've seen God work in the midst of that? We can move on to the next question. Yes, Kathy.
I saw God work so much through these moms and the leaders and the directors. It was an experience for me. I saw how God just opened up these moms to share their feelings and how comfortable they were for sharing some things that were very confidential, and they trusted us not to take it no further than our meeting. And I just saw God work through the mom through that hurt and disappointments that they brought with them. It just put a burden on my heart to want to just do more, to help more, encourage more, to strengthen more, to share more of God's words. I just saw God every time I go to a meeting or go on an out fellowship with the young ladies. I just saw God through so much because he is in everything. And I saw God in the volunteers that work with those babies when the girls are in their small group meetings. He's just so wonderful and so awesome. And I just saw the trust that these moms shared, and just, they were just embellished with so much of joy that it's just so hard to explain sometimes unless you sit there listening to them and sharing with them.
Good. Let me, so I've got one more question that I want to ask the panel, but I'm going to save that. and I'm going to open it up to you guys. So if there are a few questions that maybe you have that you would want to ask the panel, as you have either been in a similar situation or as you're thinking about what it would take to take this step of faith and do this. Any questions that you guys have from what you've heard? I think this was the part you guys were scared about most, too. It's like,
I have a question. Have any of you guys ever had a chance to like personally lead any kids to Jesus?
have any of you had a chance to personally be a part of leading a kid to Jesus?
I gotta say, not directly, but I'm a firm believer that I am a representative of Christ in everything I do, or I have that opportunity anyway. And it's the Holy Spirit within me moving, and it's my personal self and my willingness to yield to the Spirit. So I believe that I've had an impact, and I've planted all kinds of seeds based on wherever the Holy Spirit leads me. I'm not sure I can say that I've prayed the sinner's prayer with a kid, but so the answer is yes, I have, but maybe perhaps indirectly.
I would say that instead of that we as a group, we've seen kids come to Jesus, because like a lot of the kids like a kid that said yes to Jesus at summer camp this year was a kid that I didn't really plug in with until this spring, but another one of our leaders, Zetch, who's now in Colorado, being a campus life director, really poured into him for a season. And so it's really, was it Lisa? Is that your name? What was the speaker? Kim, not even close. Kim. He talked about, all the four guys that were in his life, and I feel like that's so much what the ministry is. It isn't me who's leading this kid. It's the Lord who's changing their heart, but it's the Lord working through a group of us. So it's not necessarily me. I play a small part in it, and it is great when you get to be that. It's like super joyful when you get to be a part of that. But a lot of times it's just God's story, and how cool is it that we even get to play a really minor piece of that here at campus, here at YFC.
Good. Let me go ahead. Oh yeah, let's do one more question here.
When you go to events, do you ever get any pushback from parents? If you're there to see a child and maybe they're not on the same page as you are, do you ever get any questions? Why are you there? Talking to my child.
Yeah, absolutely, to be honest. As a single male who's not married, people are going to presume, we're in a world where authentic Christ-sharing relationships are increasingly foreign. People are going to presume motives about why I'm there. And it hurts me. It just so much. And it hurts I've cried about it, thinking about our culture and how that relationship is so foreign that young men are missing out on opportunity. But I think the idea is if we believe I don't give guys, if there's only one guy in the car, I will not drive them home. I will only do it if there's two, because I think that's a good barrier, a good discipline to have. But I can get caught up in God's never, God can't work now because I'm going to miss out on that opportunity. I have a really low view of God if I believe it's this subjective. So I think one of the good things is asking parents. So I'm before I give a kid a ride, I'm are your parents, did they okay? I want to see a text, I want to see a call. When you go to events, I'd love to meet your parents, man. Is this your mom? Is this your dad? Hey, it's awesome you've been coming out to campus life. So just creating that connection, I think is really helpful for where you build that trust. Because at a certain point, it is kind of concerning sometimes, some kid just shows up in your house and you're like, yeah, my mom said it was fun. Or they don't know me at all, and you're just coming over to my house. I'm glad we do have a lot of parents who are protectors and protect their kids. I think that's a really awesome thing. But we have to be intentional instead of just being well, woe is me. This sucks that I'm a guy and I have to deal with this and women don't, which men have it many times easier in all other respects in terms of discrimination. We can't have that mindset. We have to see how is the God works through the structures we have in place, and how do we be prayerful and intentional about gauging kids in the current culture and the current community.
It's good, and these are lessons that we have continued to learn and things that we need to continue to equip you guys with in terms of boundaries. What are the proper ways to, what are the rules of engagement with students, and the ways that protect you, the ways that protect students, and the ways that protect the organization as well. So those are really, really important conversations for us to continue as a chapter and in our ministry sites to be having. And I appreciate your honesty on that, Addison.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm talking a lot. You guys, you can take the mic.
Nothing's new.
I read legal contracts all day, so anytime I get a person, I just want to tell them everything. I want to hear everything about them. I actually had a parent who I took to a Pacers game. I love taking guys to games. I love sports, so it's just a great opportunity to go to a Pacers game. And I took him to a Pacers game. Everything was fine, and then they showed up at Chris's house the week later, not asking me, and they said, "Hey, who is this guy? We didn't he's been texting, I'm praying for you, man. What is this? We're just really concerned about this." And it just destroyed me. That somebody would presume motives about you. And it was really hurtful to think that somebody would even think you're capable of something like that. But the reality is, if God can move through these different places, and we have to be mindful. And if we get this, I have to do ministry in this way, and if I can't do it that way, then I'm out. Are we really in this for the right reasons? So it's hard, and it's hard to navigate those things. But God is reaching these kids in spite of culture.
Good. Thank you for that question. Okay, so I'm watching our time here. I want to be sensitive of it. The one last question that I wanted to ask is this, and you're kind of getting to it a little bit, but what encouragement would you give to this group, those in this room, when it comes to connecting with students in these kind of settings? So what would be maybe a word of encouragement to them that maybe sets them up for success?